In a previous video entitled Software Architecture, we talked about SendClient as being one of the support modules used in the Raven Marine software. In this video, we'll talk a little bit more about the details of SendClient. SendClient, shown here, is typically minimized, and it appears on the taskbar as a blue globe. Typically, the pilot would not look at this particular module, but it can be looked at for troubleshooting by the pilot or Raven technical personnel. The minimize button is non-standard. It's not the typical resize and close buttons for a Windows application, because we didn't want the pilot to accidentally close this module. But starting with the menu here, we can look at some of the things under there. One of the things is you can replay a log file, but you first have to record the log file, and this is a raw GPS log file. And it's going to, when you click on Start Local Logging, like that, then SendClient is logging the data coming from the local GPS receiver, not the data coming from the AIS transponder, but the data coming from the local GPS receiver, such as a Raven Invicta. If I look under Options, or actually View, GPS data from own vessel, this is the data that's being recorded. And you can see the diagnostic value of having a screen like this one. You can blow that up if you want to show the data coming back from the local GPS receiver, sometimes referred to as the pilot system GPS receiver, to distinguish it from the AIS GPS receiver that's on that belongs to the ship. And then this edit button is grayed out because the vessel static information buttons here, edit, are grayed out. If you are using Wheelhouse 1, the legacy charting program, then these options would not be grayed out, and you could edit the vessel static information here. Going across this menu, you could select a remote send vessel, for example, from this list, and you could look at the versions of software being used. This particular user has SendClient 4.62, charting program is 2.5, and the GPS receiver is 4.34. Select own vessel again. Going across the menu at the top, we select miscellaneous options. The important thing on this screen is where is the data coming from. In this case, we have selected the radio button, use hardwire or Bluetooth serial port, and we're using Bluetooth COM port 40. We could select to use UDP here, and if we had a Raven Wi-Fi GPS, this radio button would be in use. This other information here is typically not something the pilot would be concerned with. And then moving on down, this box here is the operational status of the local GPS receiver. In this case, right now, it's a Raven Invicta GPS receiver. It is in 3D differential GPS navigation using 9 satellites. The data is coming from COM port 40. And this window here, we have a log file replay functions. We can control the rate of speed of the replay, and we can do fast forward and rewind if we happen to be replaying a log file. If we were replaying a log file, we'd come here and select, right now it's grayed out, but we would select here to replay a log file. Vessel dynamic information here, the latitude and longitude of our local GPS receiver, the course over ground. The heading is coming from the AIS transponder. One might mention that the heading can be turned off here. It can also be turned off in Wheelhouse 2 on the F5 screen. There's a place where heading, right, where is it? Shut off heading right here. But typically you're not going to be messing with that. Definitely shouldn't change it here. Same thing for AIS data. You could turn off AIS data here and stop it from going through to the charting program for diagnostic reasons. And then moving on down, we have a GPS status. We have the GPS receiver is in differential mode. That's the local GPS receiver. Using 9 satellites, HDOP, the GDOP. Here's a number, a parameter called HACC, stands for horizontal accuracy, and it is a measure, an indicator of, it's unitless, it's an indicator of RFI or multipath. Typically, this number here under 1 is indicating there isn't no RFI or multipath. If that number was above 15, then the system would generate a warning. Now, this is something that's unique to the Raven system. Then this particular local GPS receiver is a Raven Invicta, and it's Coast Guard beacon corrected. So here's the Coast Guard beacon data, the station ID, frequency quality, age of data, signal strength, and signal to noise ratio. All those parameters are looking good. This is for my local GPS receiver that I have set up in my office. Moving down to data messages, this has to do with this first one is messages to the send server. You can see that is counting up, and then messages from the send server, that's counting up, and then signed on with the send server is yes. And so you can see the diagnostic value of these things for if you're operating on the Raven Send network, which is a network that allows vessels to share information over the internet. And then here's local/remote messages to the charting program. So the local messages on the left there, and the remote messages from remote vessels over the Send network going to the charting program. Monitor mode is something you're typically not concerned with. Here is a window that has the send on or off. So if you didn't want to be on the Send network, you could click on off. And for example, you're having trouble with the wireless modem connecting you to the internet, you could click on off, and then this would be a good place to come and if you needed to do that, and turn that off. The alarm could also be turned off. Now the alarm is a single chirp when Send first connects to the Send network or the internet, and then there's 3 chirps if it loses that connection, and then it chirps 3 times every 60 seconds for as long as the connection has been lost. If you don't want to hear that, you can just uncheck that box right there. Here's a box that gives the IP address and other information about a particular vessel selected from this drop-down list here. Then moving on across, we have instant messaging, which at some point we would like to put into Wheelhouse 2, but right now you'd have to come to this screen, click on Go, and you'd have to select the vessel you want to send the vessel to which you want to send an instant message, and such as like this, and then type in the message you want to send and click Send. So that's about it for SendClient.